Hi everyone, Jenna here. Happy first week of May. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be creating a lot of content to help people during their fertility journey. At Million Marker, we test for hormone disrupting chemicals like BPA, phthalates, paraben, and these chemicals mess with your hormones and are linked to fertility issues. These chemicals are everywhere, so it's really important to take precautions to improve our health and our chance of conception by avoiding these chemicals. And the one big component to avoid these chemicals is through diet and nutrition. And also, as women, we have different needs through our cycles, and we must optimize our plate to make conception and healthy pregnancy easier. So one of these ways is increasing our vitamin C intake for our ovarian and hormone health. This is why we're so glad to talk to Dr. Katie Zaremba today. And she just sent me a request. Oh, hello. Hi, Katie. Hi, Dr.
Hi
Zaremba.
there.
Thank you
How's
so
it
much for
going?
joining us.
Yeah, of course.
I just about to get to the intro. So Dr. Zaremba has really extensive training in nutrition and biomedical sciences with specialties in PMS, infertility, miscarriages, PCOS, endometriosis, and menopause. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here and to discuss. I know vitamin C is our kind of main thing we're going to be talking about today. So happy to talk about that.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you became a women's health specialist.
Sure. So my focus in undergrad was in biology and chemistry, and I definitely focused on a lot of science-based things. My formal training is in chiropractic sciences. And after chiropractic school, I did additional training to become board certified as a chiropractic internist. And that's where my focus is now in practice. I started working with just general family care, and I was seeing a lot of women with digestive issues and hormonal issues in practice, and began to specialize in seeing more women due to how many issues there were, unfortunately. And so that's where my focus has become. I've had a lot of friends that have dealt with hormonal issues. Myself have dealt with a lot of hormonal issues previously in my life. And so I thought that there's kind of an area where women really need a lot of extra support, unfortunately.
Yeah, so what role have these life experience played in your recommendation to your clients?
Yeah, so I've worked with a lot of women that have dealt with things from PMS to menopause to really severe PMDD. And I've also seen a lot of women dealing with infertility, amenorrhea, which is not having a period, and having miscarriages or recurrent miscarriages. And so I started focusing on this area a little bit more because I felt that there was a lot of women being told that they've had miscarriages, but they're not ever really sure why. And sometimes it's just kind of, well, we don't really know. It just happened. And, we'll come back and we'll monitor you. And that just a lot of women are unhappy with that answer because it just doesn't feel like enough to them. Same thing with infertility. I see a lot of women that have maybe struggled to get pregnant or aren't having periods and eventually want to get pregnant, or maybe they don't and they just want to regulate their cycles. And, they hear the same types of things. Well, we'll just kind of watch it, or you can try birth control, or you can try these hormones and maybe it'll get better. And maybe it'll get better isn't really a good enough answer for me. I want people to feel really good about their health and just really good in their body and in their space in general. So that's kind of how I started focusing on this area.
I love this answer because I have been told to like good luck next time.
Yeah.
When it comes to miscarriage and other things, it's just like it's very dissatisfying hearing that.
Yeah, and it's very dismissed a lot of times.
So how did you come to realize that nutrition played a huge role in women's health?
So I have ulcerative colitis, which is a really severe gastrointestinal disease. And I had seen doctors and doctors and doctors when I was younger. And they would just tell me, oh, your diet really doesn't play any role with this. There's really nothing you need to do with your diet. And I was kind of like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but all right. And I decided I was going to change my diet anyways. This is while I was still in school, so I didn't have all of my knowledge yet. And I got drastically better from changing my diet and not eating pizza and drinking alcohol and eating, crappy food all the time. And I was like, I feel way better. And so that was where I really got into finding out that, yeah, nutrition really does play a big role. What we eat really does affect how our body feels all the time. And, that's just a little tip of the iceberg of my own personal experience with it. So that's why I decided I wanted to help other people that are being told nutrition doesn't matter when in all reality, it really
It
does.
does. Yeah. So you shared some like a really interesting post on vitamin C and hormones and with Instagram, like all natural doc. That's why
Mhm.
we're like super excited to talk to you today. So two-part question from me. So when it comes to fertility hormones, like what are FSH and LH, and what's their role in ovulation? Then we can get into how vitamin D and these things impact these hormones.
Sure. So we have two main hormones that you mentioned, FSH and LH. At the beginning of our menstrual cycle, which actually starts the day that we start our period, is day one of the cycle. FSH will slowly start to increase over the point of the first couple weeks of our cycle up until ovulation. And what FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. So it's stimulating the ovaries to produce follicles. And one of those follicles will become the dominant one that will become the egg that we ovulate. Now, as FSH is slowly increasing, it's starting to signal estrogen to slowly start to increase. And estrogen levels will really start to peak prior to ovulation. Once this peak in estrogen occurs, it'll send a signal to the brain saying, hey, it's time to ovulate. And the brain will send a signal back to the ovaries, and that will be the brain will send LH, will release LH to signal the ovaries that it's time to ovulate. So that's kind of how those two hormones work in the first half of the cycle to basically lead us up to ovulation occurring.
So how does vitamin C stimulate this its production?
Yeah, so we have what's called vitamin C transports or like receptor sites in the ovaries. We have them all throughout our body, but we have a lot of them in the ovaries. So there's a lot of exchange between cells that occurs and a lot of vitamin C that kind of moves in and out of the cells. It signals a lot of other cell pathways, kind of the chemistry side of things. This can help to stimulate estrogen production, which is also coming from our ovaries. And it can also help stimulate this growth of FSH or the release of FSH in the follicles to help with growing the follicles that eventually become the egg. So if someone is taking vitamin C, it can help to stimulate ovulation by, supporting estrogen levels, supporting FSH, and then that can help with helping ovulation occur. One other really big thing, and we hear this a lot about vitamin C, is that it's a really, really potent antioxidant. So it helps with keeping us healthy. If we are sick and we take vitamin C or something like emergency, it can help us become less sick or decrease the length of our illness, if you will. So, and this antioxidant component that it has is it helps to eliminate oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is something that really causes us primarily to age, and that's why we get older. It's really normal to have this happen in the body because it's how cells change and how cells turn over and how things just repair and regrow in our body. But too much oxidative stress can cause a lot of stress on the body itself. And there's even a lot of research on women that have low levels of vitamin C that do have issues with infertility. And I'm kind of going a little bit off here, but another really important antioxidant that helps with this is vitamin E. So there's a lot of research on women that are infertile or have maybe had miscarriages that have really low levels of vitamin C and vitamin E, and that's how they can potentially benefit from taking both of those things.
Wow, this is
Hopefully
first.
that
That's
makes
good
sense.
information. No, makes total sense. So we talked about the first half of the period. Now I know the second half is progesterone, and then obviously including estrogen will come to play. Does the vitamin C also influence progesterone?
Yeah, same thing. So since vitamin C is in the ovaries, and we also produce progesterone from the ovaries, that can also influence that. So where progesterone is actually coming from is those little follicles that I was telling you about. One becomes the egg, and after that egg is released, you have this structure left in the ovary called the corpus luteum. And this doesn't really just go away. This is the structure that actually ends up producing progesterone. So the progesterone is coming from where the egg essentially was ovulated from. And there's other things that can stimulate progesterone production in the ovary as well, but that's a lot of where that is. And so in these cells is where a lot of vitamin C transport occurs. So that's how it can also affect the amount of progesterone present in the body.
So pretty much we need to up our vitamin C intake all the time.
Yeah. Ideally.
Ideally.
And my main thing that I encourage people to do, or the most sustainable thing, is your diet, of course. So eating lots of vegetables. We don't eat enough vegetables in our standard American diet, and fruits and things like that. People a lot of times think orange juice, or oranges are really high in vitamin C, and they're moderately high, but things like peppers and parsley are also actually a lot higher than oranges, and they don't have all the sugar in them.
But so can increasing your vitamin C offset any estrogen complication caused by birth control?
Sure. So birth control, the whole point of it is obviously to prevent pregnancy from happening, and that's what its purpose should be used for, not necessarily for treating hormonal disorders. In my opinion, it should be used strictly to prevent pregnancy and not necessarily to fix an issue, because it's not really going to fix anything. So how birth control works is to prevent ovulation from occurring. And it does this by giving you a steady little flow of hormones throughout the month. You're taking in the same amount of thing every month. So your body thinks it's pregnant, or another way you could think about it is that it's in like menopause, where basically your hormones are just constantly the same. We don't have that spike that's causing ovulation to occur, because ovulation doesn't occur on birth control. With that happening, we also don't see that thickening of the uterus lining that we would see if you weren't on birth control. So in the first half of the cycle, as estrogen levels are building and building, it's thickening the uterine lining. And that's why women that have like estrogen dominance issues, or even things like endometriosis, a lot of times tend to have really, really heavy periods, is because the lining is so thick that they're shedding lots and lots of blood, and that's causing that really heavy period. So to kind of go back and answer your question, how it can help with that is birth control makes it so that the lining doesn't become as thick as it would be if you were just normally having the influx of hormones throughout the month. So the endometrial lining ends up becoming a bit thinner. Now, if you're someone that is wanting to have children later on in life, after you've come off of birth control, this may be challenging, and not for everyone, but for some women, this may be difficult because their lining may never get to that thickness where it needs to, even after they come off of birth control. And that becomes a problem, because we need the uterine lining to be really thick in order for a fertilized egg to implant into it. And then that's when the pregnancy can begin to occur. So vitamin C is something that can help with thickening the uterine lining. And I've used this with a lot of patients that have had this issue. And it's nice because it's a really, for the most part, non-invasive thing to take, where you're not going to have a lot of side effects. You just have to find what's best for that particular person. But it can help to thicken the uterine lining, specifically if you're doing it, in the kind of throughout the cycle, and finding a dosage that's right for that particular person. But to take it during, like, while you're on birth control, if that's kind of like what you're going for, then you might need to kind of weigh out, like, why is someone taking birth control, versus like, it's not really something you want to take to try and improve the thickness if you're on birth control, because it's not really going to work that well.
Right. Right. So birth control can really impact endometrial lining, and then vitamin C can help kind of offset some of these issues.
Yeah, and if someone's on birth control for a year or two, they might not notice those impacts. Where I've really seen issues is women that were on it when they were 15 or 16, like right when they started menstruating, and then were on it until they were mid-20s or mid to late 20s, and were on it for almost half their life. And that's where I've seen a lot of issues at. But it doesn't always happen. Not every woman deals with that either. So
Right. You also noted, like in your IG post, that many secondary miscarriages also happen due to a luteal phase defect. What is that?
So luteal phase defect is speaking about the luteal phase, or the second half of the cycle. And since we require progesterone to kind of dominate the second half of our cycle, this luteal phase defect is generally an issue where the body is not producing enough progesterone. And progesterone is the primary hormone that we need to support a pregnancy, and to also help, maintain a pregnancy, help with growth of the placenta, help with growth of the pregnancy itself. So if a woman isn't producing enough progesterone, this can be a very common cause of miscarriage, and generally the first 6 to 8 weeks in the first trimester. But yeah, that can be something caused by low progesterone levels, and that can be a result of a number of things. So yeah, that's what that is.
Wow. I didn't know. I know vitamin C is a really strong antioxidant, but I had no idea that it plays so much role regulating your hormone and helping with each stage of your menstrual cycle and even fertility. This
Mhm.
is amazing. So what are the best source of vitamin C that you would recommend?
So in terms of like from food or from supplements or both, I guess.
Both, please.
Yeah. So with supplementation of vitamin C, you always want to be careful because too much there, there is such thing as too much of a good thing, right? Taking too much vitamin C over a long period of time can sometimes cause people that to have kidney stones, even
Mm.
more likely if you're someone that's just has kidney issues in general or urinary issues. Also can cause issues with the GI tract if you're taking more of like the ascorbic acid form and not forms that are buffered essentially. And this can cause like looser stools or cramping or diarrhea. And it can also kind of impact different types of vitamins in the body, which I can get into in a minute. But the ascorbic acid is going to be kind of the most like active form. And this is one that's, you'll see this in a lot of products, but what you're kind of looking for is to see, is it ascorbic acid by itself or is it buffered where it's with magnesium and calcium and things like that? And that's generally a little bit more um, and less invasive or less for lack of a better word, not as harsh on the GI tract as ascorbic acid itself would be. If someone was going to do like an IV, that would be in the form of like ascorbate, and that could go directly into the bloodstream. So it would bypass the GI tract that way. So there wouldn't be the GI issues. And then you're also getting a much faster dose into the system. So those are kind of a few options that you can go for. I know not everyone has access to IVs. So liposomal forms are good if you're trying to do something very quickly. And that's because you can take it under the tongue and your body can start breaking it down in your mouth rather than waiting for it to bypass the entire GI tract.
Oh, wow. What about food?
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, you can think of orange juice is usually the first thing everyone thinks of. And that's because of where vitamin C goes back to. And, all these people on this ship years and years ago all had scurvy because no one was eating citrus fruits. But the other thing that you can get it from, like I said, would be parsley. Peppers are a really high source of vitamin C. Potatoes are until they get cooked, then it kind of decreases that level a
Mm.
little bit. So a lot of kind of green things are things that have like a lot of your plants, I guess. And you can also think of like the orange, if you're eating orange and red peppers, you're getting vitamin C from that, but also green peppers have it. And so lots and lots of fruits and vegetables have vitamin C. And we're one of the only few species that doesn't make our own vitamin C. So it's kind of interesting. We have to get it for
Yeah,
our diet.
that's really interesting. We did have one very engaged audience asking one question before the show. She asked what's the best vitamin C brand?
So I like, there's a product called Immune Biofizz from Designs for Health. It's a powder. I always like giving people different options because some people like drinking their supplements, some like taking capsules. So this powder is really good. It just mixes with water. It kind of tastes like Tang, if you guys remember drinking Tang a long time ago, but it doesn't have all the weird added sugars in it. Another one is Integrative Therapeutics. They're a good company. They have a buffered vitamin C that you can get from there. I also like Biotics has a good vitamin C. And I mean, even if you're in a bind and you can't get it from anywhere, even just using Emergency is something that will still, your body will still take in. Vitamin C is one of those things where it doesn't necessarily have to be the top of the line like herb to get the same benefits from it. Ideally, we would, but if you're in a situation where you don't have access to that, you can still get benefits from taking something rather than nothing.
Nothing. Right. That makes a lot of sense. So what are the other nutrient that you should pair with vitamin C?
So one thing to keep in mind, especially one thing I like this for, but also have to be careful of sometimes with my patients is it can really increase the absorption of iron in the body. So if you're someone that has hemochromatosis or very high levels of iron, then you might want to, consider different types of antioxidants or just how much you're taking in so that it doesn't up your iron levels more. But for someone that is anemic, this might be a really great thing to take because it can help with increasing your body's iron levels, and they'll boost a lot faster than just taking iron alone. So that's kind of a good and bad way that you can take that. The other thing you want to be careful with pairing it with would be B12. And that would more just be, not that they shouldn't ever be taken together, but just take them at separate times of the day, because if they're in the stomach, vitamin C can kind of block absorption of B12, because that's where most of our B12 absorption occurs, in the stomach. So that's just kind of one that you would want to be careful to timing wise.
That's really good to know. Someone just asked what amount should be consumed.
So that's going to vary from person to person. It also depends on, how long you're on it for. General supplements are usually like 500 to 1,000 milligrams and like a serving. So that can be more of a like standard dose. But, if you're someone that's prone to kidney stones or just other things, you probably don't want to be on a very high dose for that long. So for some people, maybe they're on it for a little bit and they come off of it for a bit and then they go back on it again and kind of rotate through it. It also depends what you're using it for. If you're in the midst of a cold or you're sick, then you might boost your levels, to 2,000 milligrams or 3,000 milligrams for 3 or 4 days, and then drop back down once you're feeling a little bit better. And even if you're about to travel and get on a plane and, you're going to be all over the place, you might want to boost your levels a little bit then, and then kind of come back down. So vitamin C is something that you can kind of adjust as needed like that. It is a water soluble vitamin. So what our body doesn't use will generally urinate out. That's why it can be an issue if you're taking too much too long with kidney stones.
Right. Wow. This is so much great information. So tell us, like, what a session would you look like? Because I mean, you approach this such in a personal way. I felt like a lot of people, if they need help, it'll really benefit them to actually book a session with you individually.
Sure. Yeah. So I am very thorough in my approach. You can see I get like really excited and I get really nerdy talking about these things. So I like my first appointment to be 90 minutes. And that way, whoever I'm working with has plenty of time to tell me what their health history looks like, what they're currently dealing with, what things they've done before, what they want to focus on, versus trying to run through a checklist of that's this long in 10 minutes. And you don't know if you missed something or if you even felt heard. So I like to take 90 minutes for my new patient appointments. I do also offer complimentary 15-minute phone calls to all new patients. And that way people can talk to me a little bit before they commit to care and see if they like me and see if it's even something I can help them with.
Wow. Cool. So what are some of the e-farm recommendations?
Yeah. So just like different brands is kind of work. Okay. So I have a full script account, and you can access my online pharmacy through my bio if anyone's interested in that. Like I said, I like biotics, research, designs for health, integrative therapeutics are some of my 3 favorite ones. I've also used Thorne, and those are kind of my top companies that I like.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow. I felt like we have to book another session to invite you back on, talk about vitamin E and then many other ones.
Yeah.
There's
so many.
there are so many paired with this, and then also like I had no idea about the vitamin B12 absorption. Wow,
Mhm.
this is so good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's great too, because it's like if even when you're trying to plan a meal, you can do peppers, and if you're trying to increase your iron absorption, then maybe you eat a lot of peppers with some red meat or organ meat or something like that. So it's kind of cool what you can do with your food and the changes you can see with that.
Yeah, wonderful. So thank you so much for this wonderful live, and everyone be sure to follow Dr. Zaremba at All Natural Doc, and then we'll also have everything promoting this all the information in our LinkedIn bio promoting this IG live. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really fun, and like I said, I get really excited and all giddy when I get to do these types of things. I love educating people, so
No, we're gonna have to invite you back on. Like, there's so much to talk about here.
I do. I know it comes out really fast. I start talking a lot sometimes.
No, it's perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.